Do you need to be a member of the OA in order to collect OA patches? Hey, ScouterStan. Want to talk a little bit about collecting patches in the Order of the Arrow. You do not need to be a member of the Order of the Arrow to collect the patches. Totally fine. You could be out of the country even. That's totally fine. You do not have to be a member of the Order of the Arrow. Now, you do have to be a member if you plan on wearing those patches. But to collect them and trade them and do all those things, that you do not have to be member, okay? It makes it a little easier to understand, and we'll get into some of that, but it does help. But as far as OA patch, I've got them all laying out here, and oh my goodness, there's a bunch of different ones. But before we get really into OA patches, I want to thank you for joining and being a part of the live thing that we have first Sunday of each month. The next one, we just had one. The next one is October 2nd. 9 o'clock. It's a Sunday, Sunday night, kind of a way to start the month. And we're going to have a live show, and it is a wonderful way to get involved. Now, if you're a member, if you already got the join button and you're doing all that, you've got icons and all that fun stuff that you could put up there. So definitely get involved with the live chat first Sunday of each month. Also, I want to thank everybody that's ordering t-shirts and mugs and stuff from the store. And I want to thank all my patrons on Patreon. So that's kind of cool. And you get to see this before everybody else. So, you lucky dog. I tell you what, scouting is a lot of fun. And the ScouterStan channel tries to make that all happen here too. So, with that in mind, let's look a little bit at the different types of patches that are involved in OA patch collecting. Now, the very first thing that you see on most uniforms of an OA members is the flap. Oh, it's over here. I moved it. The flap. The flap represents your lodge. And a lot of events, when they do the different patches, at the lodge level, they'll have different kinds. They'll have celebrations of all different kinds. Look at all the ones I've collected. I have collected a whole bunch of different ones. There are old ones and new ones and different stuff. Okay, that's the neat thing. When you go to events with OA, like NOAC or something, we do flap for flap. That means you've come with a bunch of your lodge's flaps. And what's neat is you go and trade one for one. That's the neat thing. It's a great way to meet scouts from all over the world, or excuse me, all over the nation. That's the nice thing about flap for flap. And one of the other things that I've noticed too is that a lot of times scouts will sign the back and put the area that they're in, like Cincinnati, Ohio, or something like that on the back of the flap. That's something they've done. That was true at a lot of the NOACs. They were doing that. So that's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it's a great way to trade patches very conveniently. And all these are like memories. You can put them in a nice frame and stuff of all the people you met at that event. Now, another big one that they do is your lodge's events. For instance, in, I believe it was 2014, there was a series of patches that the Tipasaw Lodge did, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And the very first one was this one, which was some blue jays. It was all birds. That was the neat thing about it. Then the different events they did. In fact, that Blue Jay one was for Conclave that we did there with the lodge. Then they had the Flamingo, which was a very popular one in that time. That was service weekend. And then, of course, we had, this one was gorgeous. This was the, this was the Ordeal weekend, which had the Cardinal. Check that out. Beautiful patches. Absolutely beautiful patches. Then, of course, they had a staff weekend for the T-Naw, which is a big thing that they do with our lodge. And this was the staff patch at that time. And it's even got a little bird with a little beak on it and stuff. It's all cut edge. Gorgeous patches. Absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, the annual patch, which was like a big back patch. It's just absolutely... It's a great set. You can put this in a set with all those different patches around it. You can put it on a blanket. Okay? These are the things that people, they see this and they go crazy about it. This Audubon series with the birds was very popular that particular year. Now your lodge has the events also. So you need to be able to say, hey, mine's got this annual patch and it's a theme. It could be Native Americans. It could be buildings. We've had that. We've had bugs, because bugs are real popular, especially with the youth. We've had different designs. We've had fish, different kinds of fish. We've had dinosaurs. I mean, it is amazing, okay? So when you're collecting, you want to collect the stuff you know, the stuff you've either been to or know about, okay, that's with that lodge. That's the important thing when you're collecting. Now, every lodge is divided up into chapters. Now, sometimes there's only 2 chapters, okay? Sometimes there's 14, 15, 18 chapters. So depending on the size of your lodge will depend on how many chapters there are. The chapters have all different themes that you could think of. One of my favorites is Huracan. Huracan was one that that was, when I was an advisor, was actually split off from another chapter. That was a big one. And this was a beautiful dangle that had all the different shiny Huracan logo and everything on it. Of course, when I was advisor, I was part of the Tosahatchee, which was the Tosahatchee chapter, and we had our own chapter patch. So these are chapters of the Tipasaw Lodge. Unfortunately, this is no longer around, so this is very collectible. A lot of people want this patch because it is amazing. It's a hot needle where it's actually been cut along the edge. There's no rolled edge per se. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it glows in the dark. That was a big deal. So chapter patches are one of those things that when you start collecting a particular lodge, you want all the chapter patches too. And they change all the time. So you got to keep in mind that these things are going on. You want to make sure that you're able to stay ahead of that curve. Now, NOAC, the National Order of the Arrow Conference, is held every 3 or 4 years. And it varies depending on what year, and you got to look into it. But typically, they'll have a contingent from every single lodge represented at NOAC. Now, a lot of times they will come up with a theme that represents either the area or something to do with the lodge. Okay, and it will vary. It depends on what it is. In 2012, I was the advisor for a contingent going to NOAC, and we came up with our own patches. It was all based on a shark and a surfer on that logo. It was amazing. Okay, in fact, in 2015, we had a contingent I was associate advisor for, and this was the patch that we had. This particular one was Timmy Tippesaw was riding a turtle. The turtle, the dangle underneath, and this together, there we go, boop. That gave the full illusion of that particular patch. Okay, now I don't know if you can see a lot of this stuff on the video, but that's kind of what's going on there. But that was a very popular thing, and they had dingles and dangles and all the different stuff, and you name it, they can do a lot of different things. So if you're collecting this stuff, you want all of it. You want the whole set. So that's very important to obtain. And there's other types of things that the lodge could be involved in. A lot of times when the Jamboree comes along, the contingent will have a set. And a lot of times the set will have CSPs. Okay, and by the way, if I'm using terms you're not familiar with, you need to see the patch crazy. I'll put it up there, put it in the little thing there. See that video, it'll tell you a little bit about these terms. But the CSPs, the council strips, would, in a Jamboree, they would have their theme, and then each one would be the different troops that they're sending. Okay, some of the big councils will send several troops, so they'll have all the different patches for each one of each troop that they're going to be sending to the Jamboree. And what's really cool, this is the cool bit, they always have a flap for that lodge, for that council. So that's something to think about. Some councils are so big they have multiple lodges. So there are some that are small that might use a lodge that's in 2 different areas. So, you got to know where your area is and what you're collecting. There are so many different patches, and they do different things for different events and whatever's going on. Those are the patches that are out there. There are collectible sashes that a lot of people will wear to these events. So that's another thing. Sometimes they will even get them autographed from famous OA or scouting professionals. They'll get them autographed. So that's another type of collecting that can go on. But that is one of the big things that is out there in the collecting world. And what's beautiful about this is that it doesn't cost a lot. It is something that sometimes is included in the fees going to these events. It's actually part of it. And what's nice about it is that you can bring them back and lay them out, and people can look at them and ask questions about your adventures in scouting. That's the beautiful thing. The wonderful thing about patch collecting is that it is available to the youth and the adults. And that's the wonderful thing. Try to blend this together so that everybody can get involved and have a really good time with it. That's the beautiful thing. We can make scouting fun. That's the wonderful thing. Collecting patches is about having fun. And I know you do good hard work, and I want you to keep it up. So until next time, I will see you on the trail.